I've had the pleasure of meeting Gretchen quite a few times, actually, and listened to her presentation last fall. It was excellent. Gretchen is a 1959 graduate at Lawrence Tech and a member of the AIA. She has her own firm in Grand Rapids, very successful architectural firm. She's licensed in the states of Michigan, Colorado, California, and Argentina, and has a Master of Architecture degree from the University of Rosario. Is that right? And she also has a Master's in Business Administration from Atlantic University, Florida. She's earned a National Council of Architecture Registration Board certification, and is also internationally known for her artwork. Gretchen.
Thank you.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm delighted to have such a wonderful audience, especially because I see lots of ladies which weren't very popular at the time, very centuries ago. It seems like it when I read how many years ago was it that I was in this school. The world has changed very, very much, and you are part of that change. And the good and the bad comes together and gives you new opportunities. So my story, and I don't really know, I had to think why I was called to lecture on leadership. I don't think I can teach you how to become a leader. It is a series of circumstances that made me, I think, a leader. When I read what a leader is, and I think you maybe have heard this definition, it says, it's a process of social influence by which one person can enlist the aid and support of others in the accomplishment of a common task. When I came to this country, I did not have that kind of vision. First of all, let me tell you, as you note in my accent, I'm from Argentina, and I came to the United States many, many decades ago when I finished my undergraduate degree here in the United States in Lawrence. I was not planning to make United States my home. I returned to Argentina and I studied and I got my master's there. In Argentina, believe it or not, coming from what we consider a third world country, 50% of all graduate architects were women. It was in the United States that you were very high behind. I'm glad to see that we have not reached the 50%, but the number is pretty good. So I lived in Detroit for many years. Very difficult to get a job as an architect, professional architect, in which I even had the opportunity to work in Argentina. I had my own office. In Argentina, architects could be contractors. That happened only recently in the United States. It was forbidden for the AIA members to do construction. It was a conflict of interest. We were not so advanced in Argentina, so architects had their own construction companies, so I had the possibility to do several buildings when I was there. Coming to the United States, difficulty finding a job. Nobody wanted to hire I was young, woman architect, because it was going to distract the men in the office. So you, I guess, guys get easily distracted. I found a job in a very large company, Smith, Hinchman and Grills. I think now is a Smith Group. I'm not sure what is the name now. We were 500 architects and engineers working there. So there were 3 of us women. The 3 of us were from a foreign country. It was a wonderful experience for me. I had great mentors, architects who found that it was worth, to give it a try to these women architects who were really committed to their cause. But my story begins not so much then, but when I moved to Grand Rapids. Now, I'm not going to go in the details why I did that, but I arrived in Grand Rapids in the 70s, and it looked like this. Pretty much a pretty depressing environment because everybody kept on telling me that Grand Rapids, excuse me, this is not my computer, but I'm trying to to make. Grand Rapids used to be 20 years before a very booming city, and for somebody who's from Grand Rapids, this young man over there, you weren't even born by that time, so you did not know what was happening. This was a downtown Grand Rapids, and I saw pictures of how it used to be when it was all boarded up. Urban renewal had happened a few years before, in which all buildings were torn down, and the beginning of this new architecture was coming about in a very devastating and lack of coordination or lack of urban planning of probably in the city. This is where I came from. So you can imagine, I lived in Rosario, Argentina, that I considered a small town. And I arrived in Grand Rapids, if you remember the first picture I saw. And if you think that it was not depressing, you're talking about, now you're concerned about the economy today, had nothing to do with when you find a place depressed as Grand Rapids in the 1970s. So I decided that I had to make a good from a bad and get involved in the city. I was lucky enough to find a job in a firm that was very much connected with great visionaries in our city. The owners of Amway Corporation, I don't know if you heard about it, but this done by two gentlemen from Grand Rapids that started selling soap and vitamins and are doing very well today in the world. But they were the visionaries, and they saw that the city was dying, and they hired our firm, De Winter Associates, to recreate and renovate some of the buildings downtown. So I was the director of design to one of the, this is something that I wanted to show you afterwards, but anyhow, to one of the buildings, and the beginning of renovation in the 80s started. Concurrently with that, since I was a woman architect in a field of architecture in US that had 0.5%, not even 1% of registered architects were women, I became a poster lady from the AIA, and I went around the country lecturing and trying to inspire young women to enter the profession. I think from all the things I've done, this was for me the most rewarding when several decades later I have received or came in contact with some of the girls who were part of my audience at that time, and I inspired them to start a career that was extremely unusual for the women in the United States. It took several years, and I became very good in what I was doing, trying to teach and to inspire girls that women do have brains and women can go to the construction site, and it is okay. The only difference is that in Argentina, we're called architects. As doctors are called doctors. Here I'm just Gretchen when I go to a construction site, which in a way is not a question of professionalism, but it is a question of hierarchy, because if a mistake is done, I'm the responsible one of them. So I am the architect, but this kind of hierarchy is not very common in the United States. So it's kind of rewarding when I go back home and I'm reminded that I'm still an architect. So this is some of the architects, some of the articles that came out in some of the magazines. I think this was in Kansas City. I lectured in Canada too, because they did have the same problem. That when I was telling you that I was a depressed city, I decided that I had to do something except complaining. I mean, what can I do complaining, living in a town that looks so different from the one I had done? So I decided to buy a building in what was called Monroe Center, the main street in our city. This building was built in 1913. It was half abandoned, had been empty for approximately 30 years, and I decided to buy it. That was an experience by itself, because they did not give me the money because I was a woman. How can a woman architect buy a building in downtown Grand Rapids? So my husband had to co-sign it, otherwise, which is very depressing. But so I could buy this building. And I called it the Minnhaar building because I thought, hey, Rockefeller can have his building. I can have mine. So I fixed it up and kept the architecture as it was and tried to rent it, which I learned many things. Maybe that's the reason why I went back to school and got my master's, because in business administration I realized that I knew how to do many things, but business was not one of them. So I had to study a little bit. And this building has undergone several renovations. And the Monroe Mall, we tried to inspire the people to come to work downtown. We made a mall, we took the cars out. It didn't happen. So we had to bring the cars back. So I became kind of a little bit of a famous lady, this crazy lady architect from Argentina that was buying buildings in a place where nobody wanted to come. To make this long story short, it took approximately 20 years. 2000, the city finally grabbed hold of the fact that we needed a center in town, and now the city has beginning to boom. I continue working and try to open my own office. As a woman alone in the 90s, it was not a very easy task. I did a few buildings, not very large and not very big, but I had the possibility to work with a firm from out of town that was very much involved in doing precast concrete, prefabricated precast concrete buildings. I had been in France looking at some. France was very advanced in that idea of prefabrication and modernizing a little bit of this ancient way in which we were building buildings. The project was very large. It was 3 towers, and I think it was one of the tallest buildings. It had 14 stories. It was built not exactly in downtown, in a little bit about 4 or 5 miles from the center of town. And it was going to be 3 towers, all connected with a huge parking structure. Unfortunately, the ups and downs of the economy that is happening now happened then too, and so only 1 tower was built. But it was an interesting journey to learn new technologies. That is something that we constantly are trying to face. And I'm sure now you, in a very different world in which I was working 25 years ago, this need to try to make things easier, faster, and better still holds true. And we still continue to be a little bit backwards in how we're building houses 2x4s, maybe 2x6s, maybe 20 inches on center instead of 16. I mean, basically, we're still hammering down buildings the same way we did it 150 or 200 years ago. So there's a lot of ingenuity that has to be done, and this is you who have to move on to this new century. I did some small shopping centers. I did a castle in the middle of nowhere, as you can see, by a doctor who wanted to build a German castle. This was the closest we could get. I continue to give lectures because I really did not meet the stereotype of women, Latin and American women, who are not tall and are not blonde, are not architects. This is what people in America thought. But in Argentina, we are tall, and we study architecture, we study medicine, and 50% of professionals are women. So the Latin stereotype is very, very much untrue. In my work, I never cease to try to add some dimension of design. And this is a very large residence we did. And one of my special contributions was designing this faceted glass door that changed the interiors with the passing of the sun. So art has been part of my life for very, very many years. When I worked more than 100% of my time in architecture and was married, had a child, life did not allow me to do very much of my art. But I continue to be very much involved in the life of Grand Rapids, and here I had the honor of being, the first time I thought of myself a leader when I came out in the cover of a magazine, next to the president of Amway Corporation. So, as you can see, we moved on as women professionals to a very different level. And Grand Rapids continued to grow and change. And this is how Grand Rapids is looking now in the year 2000, in the new millennium. Let's put it this way. This is down the street of my building. And this is the new view. The view of, I live downtown now, which I was not possible to do when I was living in Grand Rapids in the 70s. The vision and the leadership of the Amway Corporation has undoubtedly changed the city, and now many new companies are moving in. And what is more, the people who live in Grand Rapids strongly believe that we have to save the city. And I think for you who come from Detroit, which was a very nice city, by the way, have a lot of work to do. And I think you can do it too. And you have to believe that if you get together and move to live downtown, living in urban communities is a magnificent experience. For those who live in the suburbs may not have that kind of experience. But anyhow, my life continued to get different directions. I had my own firm, but I was very interested in doing architecture and art put together and see what kind of a message I can give to the community using art as my expression instead of architecture. I had the opportunity to participate internationally in very many competitions, and things were taking off. And now I spend most of my time doing artwork. It has to do with cities, but also has to do with how I see the world as an architect. Very different how I would have seen it before I was an architect. I do very large installations. It's difficult to say here the size of this, but most of these pieces are about 10 feet by 6 feet. They're squares, and the idea came from, of course, the computer. Most of my subjects have to do with people seen from up above. Since I live very high in the sky, this is the way I see my world. I do very large installations. All my art has a very specific theme. Artists do not speak linearly, we think all together. But the message is very clear. Women in the world and the different obstacles that they find to succeed. I'm working now in very large installations, 3-dimensionals, using high-density foam, which I cut with a bandsaw. I do not. I have assistants who do this type of work for me. I cut the pieces. I design the pieces, and then they're cut in different dimensions and applied. These are very large pieces that I do installations with designs on the wall. And you see, they're people, people, people. I just completed a 3-wall installation for Steelcase Corporation, also done with this foam. And the reason I'm there is just to give you an idea of the size of this installation. I'm absolutely fascinated by trying to research new materials to use in my art and how I see the world and want to tell the story. So I had the opportunity here to design the lighting, which I thought was important because it depicts Steelcase Corporation, like you know, is a furniture manufacturer that works all over the world. So each wall depicts a part of the world. So I design and computerize the lighting, so when you come in the morning, the lights are warmer and they shine from one side to the other. If you come in the afternoon or you move around, the light changes in each of the places in which you see the world, because the world when we are in the morning, it's afternoon in Europe, it's evening of the next day in Asia. And so we computerized this, and of course we cut the time schedule because nobody's there for 24 hours. So this was a very wonderful, this is another one of the walls with the Eiffel Tower. And these are the people with the Taj Mahal as a background. We celebrate continuously downtown, and we try to promote the assistance of coming people, so people come to the city and enjoy the city that we so laboriously have been working in doing. And this is a poster I just did for the 30th celebration on the ground. So, as you can see, architecture and art has become very much part of my life now. And we continue to celebrate all the things that we have done and all the things we need to do. And if I can leave you with 3 things that I learned in all of these years, is turn the positive, just don't cry on the negative. And I know I cried on my negative. The city was absolutely devastating. So I try to do something about it. I know the economy is bad, but it's a great opportunity to do something about it. Continue to study. Never is enough. Never is enough. I know when we are in school, we're dying to leave. But when we leave, then we realize we really don't know enough, and we have to continue to study and do travel. Do travel. I mean, to see the world and to learn about other cultures and to talk to other people and to see how things are done in other worlds is worth 10 years of schooling. So I'm mostly interested in finding out about you and how you see the world, and what questions can you ask me if I can answer them. I know my journey has been very special because I'm an immigrant in this country that I chose to be my home, and it will be a different journey for you. So for your leadership and entrepreneurship, it may be a different kind of thing to tackle. But basically, the world has not changed that much, but you can make it much better. So let's see what I can answer. Somebody ask a question? The young man from Grand Rapids, tell me, what do you think about this? How did you see Grand Rapids when you were growing up?
I agree with what you said. I don't remember it being, way down like it was. I'm not, that old, but that's definitely coming around, all the stuff that's down there now. Did you happen to have any pieces in Art Prize?
Yes, I do.
You did?
I didn't talk about Art Prize. That's a very good question. This is, again, the leadership of this, the Voss family, the young man, the 3rd generation, instituted a very interesting idea, Art Prize, $250,000 for the best art in the city. And everybody, there were very many venues. In other words, there were many buildings that you could hang your artwork. 1,200 artists participated from different parts of the country and I think the world. And I think the city never saw so many people. It was absolutely incredible. Did you participate on it?
I was there. I didn't participate.
My piece of artwork is still at JW Marriott. So if you go back, maybe you can see it. I hope it will stay there because it was a good venue for me. It was a big installation about something that is called parkour. Now, how many of you know what parkour is? Okay, tell me.
It's basically running and jumping over random objects through the city. It's basically
Yeah, that's
like
correct. Well, it's amazing.
Not race to the finish.
Using buildings as obstacles. It has become almost a whole philosophy. There are even parkour schools. Well, I've taken that idea and I made an installation taking buildings around the world and I made people jump over them. I mean, little people because they're little. There were little photographs in which I designed and drew people, 3rd dimension, jumping over buildings. It was a way, I think, to call attention to the great architecture of the world because I found that people were intrigued by which building have I seen this building? Do I know where is this building? You know, so go and see it. J.W. Marriott, that hotel that you saw in the picture. Okay, another question? Yes.
Do you find that Michigan is influenced by a certain region?
Excuse me, I cannot hear you.
Do you find that the architecture in Michigan is influenced particularly by some other area in the world, or is it kind of its own architecture?
Not enough. Not influenced enough. I think I think we're too conservative here. Too conservative. I think it should be influenced more by what American architects are doing in Europe and Asia. They do not do in the United States. I think in general, the buildings are always kept in a little conservative manner. People feel comfortable with brick and stone, not too comfortable with metal and steel and glass. I wish it would be more. We're trying to bring other influences. I don't know if you heard about the Van Andel Institute that is opening a new, an additional wing. That was designed by Rafael Vignoli, which has done incredible architecture around the world, and has instituted is a very, very interesting building, cascading down the hills. So I think we have to be more progressive and more daring, more daring. Have to find the right client. Yes, somebody else? Can't believe that there's nobody's interested. Eh?
I have one.
Yes.
If you could suggest one place that you visited that you felt that the architecture really inspired you in your travels, what would that be?
I can hear you. Your voice does not carry.
If you, one of the places that you've traveled to, what do you think would be the architecture most inspired you?
Well, there are many parts of the world. I have seen a lot of this world, a lot. And each country has even the primitive dwellings that I saw in Papua New Guinea were fascinating by the art. And I thought it was fascinating by the fact that the art had something to do with the place in which it was built. Right now, I'm fascinated by Santiago Calatrava. I imagine that you heard about him. He's a very creative individual. He's a very creative individual maybe because he thinks out of the box. And I have seen some of his buildings in Valencia. I've seen some of his buildings in Tenerife, and of course Milwaukee. I mean, everybody can go and see what he's done in Milwaukee. I find that we need more daring architects like him to do these buildings. He's a Renaissance man. His drawings are incredible, and he does very interesting children's book that he draws in his spare time, I think. You know, I like his architecture. It is worth, really, to, if you like some kind of architecture, to go and visit, because it is to see how the details and how the buildings go together. And we were just in Chicago, seeing the addition to the Chicago Art Museum by Renzo Piano. I urge you to go and look at it, because it's a very simple structure, but the attention to detail is extraordinary. I mean, just the walls, just how he deals with the hinges of the doors are a masterpiece. So this is how you learn to become better. Okay, somebody else? Nobody wants to be a leader. Hmm?
What's the name of your firm? What is the name of your firm?
Gretchen Minnhaar Design. Okay. It's a very difficult name to remember. Yes?
What motivated you to become an architect?
What?
What motivated you to become an architect?
What motivated?
You talked about your whole life of being
what motivated? I don't know. It just seemed very logical in my life. I loved mathematics. I always liked art. And at the time in which I was studying, or was ready to study architecture, We had in Argentina the School of Beaux-Arts kind of curriculum in which architecture was very, very connected with art. I mean, I had incredible teachers in the art world. Sculpture, we studied sculptures, we did painting, we studied drawing, besides all the other things. So it was this idea of the master builder, the Renaissance, the Michelangelo of the 20th century. Life has changed. It isn't like that anymore. So I guess it was a perfect combination for what my talents were at that time. Yes?
Why did you come to Lawrence? Why did you come here to Lawrence?
Why did I come here? Well, my husband came to US to train as a heart surgeon, and I had just started my career as an architect. I hadn't finished the first year, so here I was, and so I decided that I was not going to sit at home, do nothing, so I worked during the day, because the salaries at that time of the residents were very, very, very low. So I decided to work, and I worked in the laboratory in the hospital, and I came at night to study here. So that's why I winded up. It was a school that gave me the opportunity to continue. It was a wonderful experience for me. But when I went back to Argentina, all what I studied here was worth zero. In other words, I could not transfer credits, degree, or anything. It was not worth zero because what I studied I had with me. But I had to go back and finish 6 years in Argentina to get your master's. There's no in between. So it was a long haul, but I did it a little faster. No more questions. So I think you all should go to Argentina. It's the cheapest country to go now and visit, and you learn great architecture and meet lots of lady architects. Yes.
What was your most difficult project and why?
My most difficult project was any project that I had to present. I remember we were trying to get a school, and we worked for the school district, and I designed the building. It was a fairly innovative building, and I wanted to present it. But I was not allowed to do so because nobody was going to give me credit for the work I did. So I had designed the building, that was difficult for me. I had sat there and my partner had to present the building. So that was the most difficult, consistently the most difficult thing during the time I worked at the beginning, because nobody gave us credit. So we had a man to do this. So if you think that I'm not a feminist, I mean, that's an understatement, considering when you have to, this is not a problem for you ladies now, This is not, much on the contrary, I think it's going to be a very big plus to stand in front of an audience of school officials, or whatever they're called, superintendents, and make a presentation. I think you already have a winning card even before you started. So this is how the world has changed in only a few decades. So good for you. Easy, we worked for it. So you have to keep on going and make it better for others. Huh? Yes?
I love the presentation. I'm adjunct here. I'm a landscape architect, so I'm not with the rest of these people. But what I loved about it is the fact that you've combined things that you love together as far as the art and architecture, and that they're really not separable items. They're basically together as one. So I really think that's great.
I think we're learning that in this new world in which we're living, in which the professions are not separate entities, that we have to work together. And one of the things was landscape architecture. I mean, at the time in which we started to work, the landscape architect came when everything was done, which was absolutely ridiculous. And so this kind of combining the talents of all of the different professions make the whole so much better. And I think we're learning not only that, we're learning, I mean, with lighting, you know, lighting is an incredibly important element. So we do all the building and then somebody, oh, we need some lighting here. So somebody comes and so puts a, no, everything has to come together. And I think we're learning that. We're learning to become even two professions. I mean, now more and more people are studying to be two different things, architects and engineers. So engineers, I mean, they're doctors who are studying computer science to be able to do, you know, the programs that the doctors use. So this kind of I think is absolutely incredible. It makes the end result so much better, so much better. Okay, thank you. I hope it was worth.
I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and I'd like to thank Gretchen with a certificate of appreciation for coming out.
Coming out.
For our alma mater.
Now that I know I'm, you know, I mean, it's terrible enough when I see how long ago I graduated, but I just heard that I am a legend. I mean, I'm still around, you know? I mean, I hope to be doing a lot of things still, so to become a legend is sort of, I don't know, maybe I'm my...
Not only are you a legend, you're a legend of the month.
Legend of the month.
Legend
Wow.
of the month, and
Wow,
you're being recognized as a legend of the month for this month, and we have recognized you in our Legends display booth, and that is located in the College of Engineering. We're just delighted that you're here visiting our campus, sharing your entrepreneurial journey. This journey will be taken by many Lawrence Tech graduates. An ever-increasing number of Lawrence Tech graduates are taking their own entrepreneurial journey, and we invite you to view other of the lecture series. They soon will be available on streaming video, including Gretchen Minnhaar's lectures today. So we certainly appreciate you attending. I think that this has been a very, very informative lecture. Thank you for participating. We hope you will participate in other upcoming lectures. This is the last of the series for this term. We will start again in January.
Thank you.
Thank you.